Well, thank you very much. And yeah, welcome again, everybody. So there's only, it's always fun to do things live because stuff can happen and we just need to deal with it. No problem. We will just deal with it and start all over. So, welcome to this keynote session for Scomathon. My name is Bob Cornelissen, also called Scom Bob. I am the CTO of TopQore, a consultancy company operating worldwide, working on all kinds of SCOM projects such as implementations and upgrades, but also health checks, and we have a SCOM certification program at different levels. I am now an 11th-time MVP for cloud and data center management, and I was asked if I would give a keynote session and do that in the middle of the day, which is not the most logical part of the day, but maybe we have more listeners that way. And to use the future of SCOM MI as a topic, basically. Because, as it says on the slide there, I am thinking out loud. I am actually going to swerve a little bit around that story. Which brings us to the agenda. So I will touch upon the current state of SCOM and monitoring, and from there I will be looking at some developments in the monitoring space or in space in general, and see how the stories connect or could connect. We discuss a little bit about the immediate future and some food for thought, and around SCOM MI. And I do want to mention the sessions which are running today and give a shout out to them. So let's start with the state of monitoring as we know it. You are here at Scomathon and as you may know, this event has been running a few years, and the operations manager program has been around for well over 20 years and is a great tool indeed. We know SCOM as a monitoring tool mainly running on-prem in data centers, where also the monitor devices are being housed. Of course, SCOM is usually just one of several monitoring tools in your data center, which is a normal state to be in. Looking at the SCOM versions first, we have SCOM 2016 in extended support only, so do not expect any updates for that version anymore. And we have the current mainstream versions of SCOM 2019 and SCOM 2022. So, if you are on older versions of SCOM, have a serious look at moving to supported versions from here on. Aside from those having more modern possibilities or things you might want to make use of. So, only good. However, the current state of IT is not anymore fully on-prem, and monitoring has also been implemented in the cloud. From the Microsoft part of the story, we would be looking at Azure Monitor. This is a grouping of monitoring and data gathering solutions, including log analytics, to store and be queried. We have Application Insights, which is the APM or Application Performance Monitoring equivalent of what we know in SCOM as APM. These are valuable resources and methods for monitoring cloud apps, and in case of application insights, looking deeply at website apps, including the things which are interesting for developers as well. You have heard today about Azure Monitor SCOM Managed Instance, and you will hear more about it later today if you follow my session on that. It is in public preview right now. And we have the extensive security monitoring. There has been a huge push in security monitoring in Azure since several years, looking at the suite of Defender tools which can send data to the cloud, and Security Center and Sentinel can integrate and make sense of all that data to detect things going wrong, or maybe you are being hacked. There are huge teams of developers behind this and a lot of knowledge making these solutions for security looking very cool and giving so many options. Having said that, we can now look at some developments going on. Some, of course, going on for a longer time. Well, the first item is kicking in an open door, of course, we see a lot of clouds out there. Of course, on the Microsoft side, this is talking about Azure public clouds, mostly. And to be honest, I have been announcing for years that the future will be hybrid. Most SCOM customers, for example, are companies of the medium to large sizes. Those are not easy to go full public cloud within a year, and many are more likely to have some percentage in both sides, which is what we basically mean with hybrid implementations. Of course, when we go hybrid, we need to have a way to manage systems and such in both or all environments. And we see an uptake of Azure Arc for this as the management layer. And we see Windows Admin Center to manage sets of machines, however, wherever they are. Getting back to monitoring now. What we see happening when customers go partly to the cloud, we see a lot of lift and shift of VMs. This causes those machines to be also monitored by Azure Monitor by default as a VM, as a machine sitting there in the portal. We see some confusion and challenges around which tool to use, or should we use both, which leads us to the challenge of the lack of comprehensive workload monitoring from Azure Monitor itself. Right, Azure Monitor is good at saying, hey, the machine is up or down, we have the CPU, memory, disk, some of these basic things. But let's have a look at Active Directory, SQL, IAS, BizTalk, or whatever workload you are running on those machines. This is the strong point of SCOM management packs. This gives for a fragmented ecosystem for monitoring solutions, which is something that we want to fix moving forward, right? Now, so as I said, that we see a challenge where we either end up with two monitoring methods or where we try to use one, which sometimes leads to a limited monitoring solution, or we have seen some making a choice to go for less comprehensive monitoring. Well, Microsoft is working on solving for this. You have just heard the Microsoft product team talking about Azure Monitor SCOM Managed Instance. This is a way to bring the SCOM capabilities, thinking of the extensive management pack ecosystem, in as a capability of Azure Monitor, rather than trying to quickly recreate everything from scratch by just typing in a lot of code. SCOM is cloud-based for the main infrastructure pieces, meaning you are left on-prem with agents, possibly gateways, and your web dashboarding components. Which means we are enabling monitoring in a hybrid world with a link to Azure Monitor. And as you have heard several people say today, this is brought in as a capability of Azure Monitor, not as a replacement. And next, we will be looking at making monitoring data available through dashboarding and other methods of visibility, which I will touch upon within a few slides. Looking at the future, and this is some of the thinking out loud stuff I was talking about in my initial slide. I foresee a link to hybrid management tooling in the future to bring together the code to express the willingness to monitor something in the way of deploying and automating stuff, which is, for example, Azure Arc. How this would play out, I cannot say, but we have heard Ankur earlier mention the ARM possibilities of the monitoring agent coming for Azure VMs and Azure Arc connected VMs. Now, aside from that, I see a potential to use other available tooling for dashboarding, as there are several tools out there, of course, already. Some of those are on the Microsoft side, and others are, for example, Squared Up Cloud. What else do we see happening? Well, this week is also the week of Microsoft Build, as I hope you are aware. And they have found a way to mention and use AI and machine learning about 1,000 times in there within the first day only. and probably in the second day again. So first of all, we see AI connected to text, images, and video. ChatGPT has been mentioned even several times during today's sessions over here. And we know that there are likewise solutions for creation and adjustment of images and videos as the graphical content aside from the textual content. We see machine learning and AI connected to office life, coding, development, security data, Windows, and more. Basically, anything with Copilot in the name. Now, if you think there are about 5 of those, then you are wrong. I think we are maybe today up to about 35 of those Copilots by now. And, they are being released really, really fast. So it feels like suddenly it has to be pushed into anything and everything. And in several cases, you will find a lot of advantages and new opportunities in those, not necessarily in everything. So how does this one connect to what we are talking about? We have seen and currently see more companies wanting to bring monitoring data together to gain more insights. This is either through a manager of managers solution, bringing data together or solving for it, by showing monitoring data side by side in dashboards. Many would like to see disparate monitoring data come together in some intelligent system. That system should be used to figure out, for example, the root causes of issues and make predictions towards the future. I have seen companies try these things on their own in internally built systems and try to make some kind of a machine learning around it. But we are obviously now seeing more opportunities to make use of the large AI models out there. And at some point, having some AI running for us just across your data and not having to move that data out of your bubble and still be able to provide the intelligence that we need. Because the internal data should mostly stay internal, but we still want to make use of all of this AI. So this brings us to the topic of the future, while I'm thinking out loud anyway. So while being back in the monitoring space, one of the words we have seen spinning around is observability. Let me get to that in a few sentences from now. Coming from monitoring, this is mostly seen as making a definition of something very specific you want to see and check for. So that is what monitoring is seen as. One second. Okay, so monitoring seen as something really specific. Say you are looking at one performance counter or one event log entry. You defined beforehand what a potential issue could be and how you can see if it is happening. In many cases, these individual checks are not related in most monitoring tools. Now, in many cases, these individual items are not related. However, in SCOM, to my opinion, there are relations being made through the health model in combination with the class model. So you see a website issue rolling up through IaaS and the server. And we know of distributed applications in SCOM, which brings together the components of applications and roles that we are checking. But many tools do not have this. And also, we are not looking for things that we have not defined. Well, stuff can still break, obviously, in our servers and applications. Now, this is where observability comes into play. Observability is about aggregating data from whatever data source into some big lake of data, trying to correlate things, together, which are happening, and then analyzing what is happening. We are looking for abnormalities, which might lead to other deviations in the systems. Those might lead to alerts and issues and tickets. Well, if you look at the observability thinking, we are looking at massive amounts of data and systems which are sifting through all of that, making connections and correlations, and then finding the abnormalities. This sounds actually to me like a perfect candidate for the cloud because this requires an abnormal amount of processing power, which normally is not there on the on-prem systems. So for observability, we thus need a place to store data from different sources in consistent ways. So we can query it through a consistent querying mechanism, which leads to the capability to analyze the data using computing power, machine learning, artificial intelligence, and so on, and to be able to visualize things. So will this be where we are going with this? We can try and put some product names or solutions to this as potentials, or will we see something new in combinations? We have just heard Ankur talk about integration with Azure Monitor. SCOM MI would be just a big data source, and we can in the future start using log analytics analysis methods and integrations with the event hubs. We just heard him say that as well. And of course, there are several data visualization tools that can integrate with the backend or with the data resulting from observability learnings. To me, I would like not to sacrifice the monitoring depth and possibilities of SCOM while still being able to move forward to the observability plane and modern possibilities. So this is also why we are moving forward to SCOM MI, which is not competing with Azure Monitor or them both fighting to replace each other. So what can I now say about the SCOM MI roadmap, which is what I was asked to think about or hint to as the title of the session seems to hint at? Well, obviously, I'm not working at Microsoft. Ankur did mention some things coming up in the fall in Q3 or Q4 of this year. So let's go with that one first. We are looking at ARM awareness for Azure VMs and Arc connected VMs. We saw talk about more Azure Monitor integration, which gives the possibility, the opportunity to work on the observability layer from there through alerts, reporting or dashboarding, log analytics, which means that we can query it using KQL, which is also being used in other monitoring tooling, such as again the security monitoring tooling. And we have the event hubs. And there's obviously more to come. Now, for your information, they, and with they I mean the Microsoft product team, cannot simply start disclosing every idea which they are working on, as some might not even make it to the end product, others might be adjusted while they are moving forward, and others might not get priority and be finished before the next release cycle. There is more than meets the eye behind all of this. So I'm talking to the team members a lot. And of course, there's a lot going on moving forward. So, that's also why we cannot be pinned down on a definite GA date or what exactly is going to be in there or not in there. There might be more in there that they are saying if they can finish and test it on time. Yes, more to come. So, the future outlooks. Firstly, SCOM has a great proposition for on-prem and hybrid workloads. It is a great product and will be around for a long time. A SCOM MI move to the cloud and hybrid while offloading some administrative burdens, right? So this is the first proposition of the SCOM MI, taking away some of the admin burdens having to do with deploying SCOM and keeping it up to date for the backend parts of it. That is what we wanted to move away first. Looking at the centralized data storage and analysis vision, as I talked about just now. And in the meantime, we can feel free to dream and discuss. And we can figure out ways to connect these things together. And, that's also why I'm regularly talking to the product team about these things. Like, how does this work in real life? What do you see happening with those customers? Would this work? Would this not work? Can we add it? How can we solve for this? I don't know. So there are multiple things going on in the background there. So this is what I've been looking for towards the future. Now let's have a quick look at the sessions coming in this today. So for today, I've split up the total list of sessions into 4 categories. First one is more the monitoring part. So as you were aware, this is a keynote. It's playing in the middle of the day instead of at the very start of the day. So I'm trying to categorize these things into those 4 blocks. Now, if you see a session in this list, by the way, which has already passed earlier today and you've missed it, do not worry. There will be recordings of these sessions available soon, and hopefully of this one as well. So on the SCOM monitoring part, we see HP and Dell hardware monitoring, Jan Pettersson, open source monitoring by Jonas Lenton. We've seen that one already. The endpoint management MP by Dujon. We see metrics insights, SCOM and SCOM AI GPT by the guys from GitMetrics. And we see MP authoring and PowerShell by Mark Sargent as well. Now, moving to the next section, SCOM deployment and configuration. At least that's what I'm putting these in. So we've just seen top 10 mistakes implementing SCOM by Dieter Weidmans. It was very nice to meet you for the whole 3 seconds this morning while you were running towards your other session. And now you have had the chance to see that one as well. Using PowerShell with SCOM by Stoyan. I think that's the session coming right after this one. And later on, we also see a monitoring landscape with SCOM and AMA agents by Wei. Another section would be SCOM MI. So sessions talking about SCOM MI. We have just seen right before this one, the hybrid monitoring with SCOM MI and visualizing this with SquaredUp by Ankur Gupta for the Microsoft side of it, so SCOM MI part of it, and by our good friend Bruce for the visualization. Of course, this keynote is mostly talking about SCOM MI or technologies related to it. We are going to see a session by Harold Dijk from Select about DevOps, migration, and more, which also falls partly into the previous section, but also in the SCOM MI parts for the migration part. And coming soon, I think in about hour and a half, we will see my SCOM MI deep dive by myself, which is great. And all come and see that. Customer perspective monitoring on SCOM MI by Christian Heidkamp from NICE as well. And we have a number of panels going on. So we have already seen the open source and SCOM panel, which was presented earlier today. Very soon we will see the AI for SCOM and beyond, which ties in exactly what I just talked about. I think I'm also in that panel. And later on in the day, we will see Microsoft monitoring. What do we want to see, as well as another panel being out there. So I'm really anxious to see if you have any questions about this session so far, or if you are having other implementation thoughts or about this story. So, Tim, are you out there?
I am. Thanks. Bob, are we back on your mic?
Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. No, Bob, thanks so much for that. That's brilliant. Yeah, if anyone has got questions for Bob, please do post them in LinkedIn or contact Bob direct. I'm sure he'll be more than happy to answer them. There you go. There is a question actually just come through.
Yay.
Can you see that, Bob? Will we in SCOM MI be able to implement needed configuration for the SCOM management servers?
All right. So this is looking at things like registry keys and looks like some scripts and stuff. So first of all, currently, as it is, right? So those SCOM management servers sitting in the cloud are just that. So they are a Windows machine with SCOM on it, which means you can log into them, right? So you can understand, obviously, that the ideal situation would be, I don't know, like an app in Kubernetes just running things and you cannot log in and it just does its work, right? But it's not at that stage right now, right? It's not a packaged app. It is just an app running on Windows. So yes, you can make registry changes, I think. I would say be careful with that. Don't overdo it, because these servers, they are standardized, they are rolled out, they are meant for a number of machines, which is about 1,000 per management server. So it doesn't really work well to try and press most out of it. Sounds a little bit like CPU overclocking. Wow, that's old. Custom notification scripts. At this moment, in the preview phase, this is not what they want to enable and want to see. However, it will have to be solved in some way. So I cannot say everything about that, but you can look forward to something on that side as well.
Great.
Thanks, Cosmos.